So then the video.
Users and contacts.
Yes. So what I'm just trying to get completely straight here is that the lecture that you uploaded via YouTube, that's supposed to be the second lecture, that's a fault, like mostly a step-by-step of how we're getting this set up, but it does include putting the colors table in your database. Was that just an example,
Just
or
an example.
But that video is supposed to kind of be a step-by-step of like, this is most of what you're supposed to do.
Except for that, everything should be perfect. Now, notice in that Word document, I included the context, my envisionment of the context table, except you got to amend it. I just have name amended so it says
first name, last name, like you said in the video.
Otherwise, it's kind of lame.
Okay, but as long as we follow that, we have at least like a basis for what the project is.
Correct.
So it's not a finished thing, of course. We still need to go through and do the other parts, but it's a basis.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And for tomorrow for databases, we can populate random contacts for the database.
Yeah, so on the contacts, just put some sort of Joe Smith, Sally Schmo, blah, blah, blah. You gotta have, plus your API people need a way to test, they need some data to test against. Here's what Jacob's gonna ask you to do, database people. Log on to MySQL, good. Show the databases, show databases, okay. Use COP43, the real one. Show tables, select star from users, select star from contacts. That's it, you're done, okay. He just wants to see that you finish your database. Now, remember what happens next week? API is on, right? API, he's gonna want you to use Postman to test your register and login, okay? Now, there was this very confusing thing. It's my fault, I take responsibility for it. I'm not gonna change it. So, when are your PowerPoint slides due? There's a date in the web course. That's wrong. Here's the rule. Your PowerPoint is due before you do your presentation. I couldn't put that in the web course. Okay, so make sure what you do is you gotta submit it, because otherwise I take out 10 points, which is a lot, you know. Points or something's weighted heavily. Okay, so that's, let's see. How will you do register? Let me just do the last API boring thing. Nothing's boring, by the way. I love backend so much more than I love front end. You front end people have the hardest job actually. Okay. What are you gonna do for registration? Did I already say this? Yeah. Registration is an insert statement. Just go to my add colors and hijack that, right? Also for the delete, it's just delete. This is the easiest query you'll do. So anyway, now, Tuesday night, guess what time I left this classroom? Not 11. 9:41. I got home at 10. So 9:41. And I am going to stay, this is going to be my pattern. I'm going to stay as long as you need me. So don't go home and say, man, I wish I could figure this out, right? Because he's working on files and all. I said, just after class, if you need help, I'll help you. So go ahead and let me do that for you on Tuesday and Thursday night. Yeah.
Just to confirm again, are only the database people showing up tomorrow?
Yes, however, other people can show up. Like the project manager might want to show up, or the API, but the only requirement is the database role.
Okay.
So, and we do that so that you guys don't have to go to these meaningless labs. What Jacob is doing is making sure that everybody is on track, right? Not that it's not flawless. Yes.
I thought that I remembered it being mentioned somewhere that the project managers should also show up with their Gantt charts.
It's recommended.
Recommended,
Yes,
okay, just
recommended.
making sure.
Okay. The project manager should probably be mostly done with the Gantt chart right now, and if you guys can have a meeting with your team, it'd be really good. You really need to work out the Gantt chart with your team. You see how long it's going to take to do this, but I'm going to suggest that by the end of this weekend, your front end is logging in and is registering, okay? While they're doing that over the weekend, the API people need to move on and do like, I do the search first, so then the front end has things that they can populate with. Yes?
What are we doing with this one? Like your one group?
No, it's the same PowerPoint. But I'm not doing groups. I don't. A lot of times like SD1 is usually just one person. Everybody needs to test this. But it is the same PowerPoint. Okay, that's a really good question. what's in the PowerPoint, what do I wanna see? Name of the project, what are you doing? Everybody's gonna say the same thing, contact manager. Who's on the team, what are the roles, what went right, what went wrong? I wanna see your Gantt chart, your ERD, your use case. Then you'll do Swagger Hub, you'll go to Swagger Hub and show that. For Swagger Hub, just show me one endpoint. We do not have time for you to show me a bunch of endpoints. So just show me one endpoint, and then finally you'll do your demo. You have 12 minutes. I'm sorry. That's all we have. And even at that, I can't give you a test. I have to make your first test a take home, so I can get that time back and use it for these. So anyway, that's the way. So that's how your presentation is going to go. PowerPoint, Swagger Hub, and demo. Yeah. Yeah.
What should be the exact task listed in the Gantt chart?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Here we go. Database. So you'll have like a database category. Create the database, create the tables, populate with some test data. Then you'll have APIs. Log in, register. You have all your API endpoints listed. And here are your API endpoints. You can do whatever you want, but I'm going to say log in, register, read or search, create, update, delete. So you should have 5. And so your Gantt chart should have a category that says API, and you should have those listed. Front end is a little more difficult, so you're only going to really have 2 pages. You're going to have your like login register page, and then you're going to have your landing page. Now, so I would say on the front end have login and register, and then on just get the landing page done. The first thing you're going to do on a landing page is go ahead and query the database or have a search bar. The best way to do it is have everything be empty and have a search bar and let the user do a search before you populate it. You do a search like John, and it does everything that matches John. And it'll pull in maybe 5 records, and then you populate it in the landing page, okay? And then what I suggest is have on the right side of the little buttons and say edit and delete, okay? And you click on the edit button. You can do it 2 ways. You can either pull up, do inline. Remember that Paradise thing I showed you? That's doing inline editing. Or you can actually pull up a I like pulling up a dialog box myself, but you can do it however you want. So you can pull up a dialog box with all the edit stuff. And this is funny. This one team last semester, when they clicked on their app to do edit, they pulled up this blank dialog box, and you had to type it everything over again. So if you pull up a dialog box for edit, everything's got to be there, all the old data, right? So you can change it. Okay, so did that answer what I needed in Gantt chart? Yes. So, first of all, it's a big mystery. I use the RND system to assign times and dates. So at a certain point, about a week before they start, which is about a week from now, I'll put times and dates for your presentation. Everybody in the team has to participate and say something. You can't just stand up there like, you got to say something and contribute, right? This is like, you're a team, so you got to contribute. So that's about the presentation. Any other questions? These are really good questions. I appreciate it. Yeah.
With the search contacts, are we searching like specifically by name, or are we searching by everything, like the phone number and the email? And
so, do we search by just the name? It's up to you. But if you look at that YouTube video that I created, that shorter one, I search everything there and I show you how to do it.
Okay.
So I might just suggest doing that, since you had the example and all that kind of stuff. So, yes.
On your, I heard you discuss like how like whenever you do a presentation, you like set up like whatnot.
Yeah. So for the presentations, do not go to Google Drive. Do not do anything. Do not pass go. We're so limited in our time. Have your PowerPoint on the USB stick.
So for the Swagger Hub presentation.
So have a link for that. In fact, what most people do is they open up Swagger Hub before their presentation, so then they just go to it, right? By the way, it's against the law of Lineker to use a laptop. You got to use this lectern computer. I know a lot, it's just too easy for people to cheat. So, I don't allow, you have to use this computer, and I had someone come up last semester like, what are you doing? You got your laptop? What? You're like, I can't use it? No. So, yes,
And like, just for like a quick, like, simple outline of like the presentation, of like, you pull up the PowerPoint, you do this, and you talk about like the.
what your project is, who you are, what are your roles, what went right, what went wrong, what's the technology used, things like that.
And then you would like show the number, and then you show the demo,
Mhm.
and then you go back to the PowerPoint, and then it comes all.
Yeah, go back to the PowerPoint, and usually you have a question slide, say question. So the class can ask you questions at the end, you might try to give like 30 seconds. I say something about everybody, so I'll say, hey, great job, or hey, that was terrible, I know, I'm gonna say, I think sometimes. You don't want me to think of that, so anyway. All right, I'm actually, so that, here again, if you need me, stay after class, I'm trying to help you. All right, so this is going to dovetail with what we talked about, whenever that was, I saw you last on Tuesday. So this is gonna dovetail with Tuesday. Remember what we talked about on Tuesday was you have these, clients, or customers, or sponsors, or whatever, and they're non-technical. Why did we go through that on Tuesday, drawing the pictures and stuff? Because what we wanna do is make sure that if, for whatever reason, you fall into this category, you know, you can communicate. Well, tonight we're gonna be talking more about how do you get the problem. You know what the number one failure in software is improper requirements gathering. Now, in this class, you know what the number one failure is? You'll never guess. People being, what we politely call them social loafers. I never have anybody do poorly in this class because they couldn't figure out the technology, because I help them. But we have people who think, oh, the next week, and then they're done. And then what happens is the team gets really irritated, but their team doesn't want to rat them out because, you just want to rat people out. But it's rude to do that to your team, and I'm going to ask you not to go down that path. Okay, so that's the biggest point of failure in here. And senior design is even worse, because you have these people for 2 semesters doing that, right? So, I'll tell you the story real quick. I had this one team of 4, and there were these 2 girls. They had jobs that lined up at Amazon and Google. Do you know how much they did for senior design 2? This much. So they failed senior design. You don't fail senior design 2 and repeat senior design 2, by the way. You go back to senior design 1. So, guess where they didn't go next? So anyway, I just want to really encourage you to do your part. We have this saying in senior design, do what you say you're going to do, and it's really important. All right, so what we're going to talk about now is gathering requirements, because it's in software, it's the biggest point of failure. And at some point, now I gave you the requirements, I gave you very incomplete requirements, and so we're going to actually talk about even your requirements for this project. So software requirements, descriptions and specifications of the system, more obviously that's pretty general. But if we break it down into categories, it turns out to be a little bit better. It determines the services that the customer requires. That doesn't mean the customer didn't tell you to use Visual Studio, did they? I don't know what that is. They didn't tell you to use a MERNStack or CSS. They just, hey, when I run it, I want to be able to type up contacts, right? Or I want to be able to type up an invoice so I can send money or whatever. Services that the customer requires and the constraints on the system itself. What would constraints be? For you, your constraints are you're using DigitalOcean. It's $6 or $7, depending on which choice you make. And so it's going to be fairly restricted. Low bandwidth, low CPU, low memory, all that kind of stuff. So requirements of systems, services, and constraints. So that's what we're talking about right now. How do you figure out where you are and what you have to work with? So what is a requirement? It's a high-level abstract statement of service. It's not, we're going to create an index on this database view. That is not a requirement. It might be at a low level in your team, but your customer doesn't have any idea of what a database index is, unless they're at the country club. Hey, we're adding database indexes. People like to go to the country club and talk big, like, that is one of your test questions, by the way. your CEO is at the country club and blah, blah, blah. So by the way, all of your test questions are totally scenario questions. And you just write 3 paragraphs for each one. My tests are so easy, you can write 3 out loud. Alright, so term requirements is overloaded. There are actually 2 types. High description for contractor bid and detailed description of the system to be delivered. Now, you might be the high-level person, and that's really what I'm talking about right now. Or you might be the sort of lower-level person who's like figuring out the database indexes or maybe the APIs. API, by the way, is pretty low level, so you're never going to talk to the customer about APIs. In fact, I made a mistake. I told you guys I'm doing this rewrite, this software rewrite for this guy. But the guy who's in charge, I said, yeah, I'm going to use the JavaScript framework called React. And he gets back and says, no, I heard JavaScript is really dangerous. So this is a reason you don't tell them stuff like that. Just say, yeah, I'm going to use a framework. Don't say JavaScript. All right, I'm supposed to disable JavaScript on my computer, right? Yeah, nothing's, by the way, if you do that, nothing now on the internet is going to work. Everything is JavaScript is enabled. So, the point of this bullet is there are 2 parts to this requirements, right? So the user requirements are sort of this really high level. Here's my customer. Here's what they want. They might even say, I want a blue theme or a green theme. By the way, next week I do an accessibility lecture, which is actually pretty cool. It's going to help you front end people kind of understand the rules of the road for how to make your front end really pop out. You say accessibility. What does it have to do with it? It's not just for people who are blind or colorblind or whatever. Accessibility gives us the opportunity for our website, our web apps to be even better. But anyway, so they might say blue or whatever. I want this kind of button or whatever. So fine, whatever. I guess they could probably read or look at websites and figure that out. But they're going to tell you something like, this is an accounts payable, accounts receivable. I need to have settings. I need to have an admin login or whatever. System requirements are stuff like, oh, I need a server, right? The server's got to be somewhere, and they're not involved in that, but you are. You and your team are. Just like you guys are involved in it, right? You set up your server. That's part of your system requirements. You set it up. You gave people logins. You created the Beast credentials, which I hope you did. That's becoming famous, the Beast. In fact, this is funny. At UCF, this is a big school. When I had someone from Heroku say, wow, we've got a lot of people from Central Florida logging in and creating accounts. What's going on there? Because all of my classes are required to. So this university is so large that people actually notice what we're doing, which I think is cool. Okay, if you don't think so, that's just don't come. System requirements, so it's like, how much memory do I have? And that's for you to decide, your team to decide. By the way, everything in this whole, you are not going to get a job that you're not on a team. It used to be you could be what we call a lone wolf, and you were doing all the work yourself, but those days are long gone. You're going to be on some sort of team, and you need to get along and so forth. I do a lecture on team dynamics, which is really pretty good. Talks about sort of the issues. Finally, the software specification. It's stuff like I'm going to use Visual Studio. We use maybe Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio Community or whatever. I'm going to write it in C#. What's my language or whatever. So anyway, software specification. So these are the kind of 3 really broad general umbrellas. So here's kind of I don't really like this that well, but this is an example of so you have this requirement definition. The software must provide means of representing and accessing external. I just read from the PowerPoint. I tell everybody when I teach them about communication, don't read from the PowerPoint. So I just did it. I just wrote the line of rules. But all of these things down here are the individual specific things that you are going to take into consideration when you develop and satisfy that requirements definition, right? And that's what you do with your team. That's why you're having your team meetings. And so there are going to be things that you have to decide how you're going to do. How are we going to do the login? Remember, I already said there's a login, and some people, the Paradise thing is just up in the right corner. It says sign up or log in. That's fine. Those people did a really good job. eventually had them in a senior design, and they did a good job there too. So that's kind of what you're talking about in your team. This is kind of another example. So your meeting, you're gonna talk about how you log in and register. You're gonna design your landing page. How is this search bar gonna go? And what he was asking, are we gonna search just the name? You know, you can do whatever you want. You can just search the name, or you can search the name plus email plus phone number. That's like totally up to you. By the way, you get a lot more flexibility. I know I told you, you're doing a content manager. For your large project, you get to pick what project you did. So what I'm doing is set you up now, and then on the next project, have a lot more flexibility. So I try really hard to get you do the easy break in here, and then you, all right. So let's role play now. Some people laugh at me here, but I role play in senior time too. So let's talk about your contact manager. Do you have any requirements, definitions? Yes. Let's talk about login and register. Do you have any definitions for login and register? Yes. You probably don't, but it's a really good thing. Why? Because theoretically, your front-end team is going to be working on it Saturday and Sunday, right? Okay, so what would it be? Let's say you're telling me, let's say I was on your team. What would you tell me about login and register? How would you design it? Just username, password, right? Or would you give them like password? Okay, how about register? Here's some questions. Register is more complex. You'll have username, password, email, first name, last name, blah, blah, blah. Are you gonna have password complexity? I didn't say anything in the rubric, right? Are you guys gonna do it or not? So you gotta talk about that with your team. This requires password complexity. I kind of, I do recommend it, but it's not required in this project. Are you going to do field validation? For instance, if I type Joe Smith in the email field, are you going to tell me that's not a valid email? Okay. See, these are the kinds of things you're deciding as a team, right? So you got to get your requirements ready. I know I'm not a customer. I'm not telling you what to do, but imagine someone is telling you what to do, and you got to have these. There's a hot in here. Have you noticed that? Damn. Maybe that's. Oh, so that's what you got. Okay, and what about the specifications? Okay, the specifications are we're going to use a JavaScript validator to make sure they type in a phone number. You know what I'm saying? So what's the technology you're going to do? So I'm going to, when we do accessibility, I think, I'll show you how to have a JavaScript field validator. Have you guys ever gone sites and when you didn't type in an email and said, hey buddy, do this again? So that's called field validation. Very important nowadays because it prevents you from having to deal with their mistakes, okay? So we just role play. We're gonna role play again later, tonight, in the future. Okay, so user requirements, who's gonna look at those? Managers, users, clients, customers, blah, blah, blah. The user requirements are gonna be the high level people. The system requirements, they're gonna be the system and users, clients. This is like the engineers, really the smart people. You know what I have to say about smart people, right? There's the Lineker bifurcation. This is all of y'all, right? And then down here, the people who didn't try very hard. I'll tell you a story. I love this story. You know, they actually don't, but I love this story. So I was in Starbucks. I went to Starbucks. This is about a year and a half ago. Hey, Dr. Lineker, how you doing? And this guy looks vaguely familiar. Yeah, I had you for senior design 2 last year. I'm like, why are you working in Starbucks? You don't want to be that way. Now, I'm going to tell you something. The guy, yeah, I know that's really mean. The guy from AMD, the programming manager of AMD, came to my FOOS class last semester and talked to them about hiring. And I asked him a question. I said, if they don't do their projects in FOOS, and I didn't say FOOS because he doesn't know what that is. But, by the way, do you know what the acronym for this class used to be?
Poop.
I had this girl walk up to me one time. She was dead serious. I want to talk about food. You wanna rephrase that? Okay, so anyway, I asked the guy, a project manager, the programming manager, and like, if they don't do their projects, and they really work with slackers and stuff, you know the difference? And he said, yes, our interviewers are trained to ask them questions and they'll know. So what I'm trying to do, a big part of what we learn in this class is how to work in teams, right? So I want to make sure that you got that, right? That's like easy but hard, right? It's easy because like all I got to do is do my part, right? But it's hard because the football game. Oh, wait, what's that? There's a football game in 3 weeks or whatever. I was told. I don't watch football at all. Super Bowl or something. Wait, when is that? It's like done, gone. Okay. We had someone pitch a really cool football project in senior design, and that's like the first I heard about it. Software design specification. So this is going to be you. Most of you are going to, even though half of you are CPEs, so half of that half are going to get software jobs. CPEs make really good software engineers, so they get really good jobs too. I had a guy, I don't want to give you too many good ideas. I hired him like for a couple of summers, like 5 and 6 years ago. He was a CPE. And based on what he learned when he was working for me, and then we actually got this external contract in North Carolina, and he was flying up there to help me with it. And so based on that, he got a job at Sabre, which they do all the airline reservation software. He got a job at Sabre because they've seen that a company in North Carolina was going to offer him like $82,000. They offered him $87,000 to start. This guy's a CPE who hasn't graduated yet. He still today hasn't graduated. And then 2 years ago, he came to my house and brought me a really expensive bottle of whiskey. And he said, you know what, they just promoted me to senior architect. I just want to thank you for everything you did. So, I mean, that's the power of this class. It's not even me, it's this class, okay? I know this is the raw. I should have been a cheerleader. I don't have the body for a cheerleader, but I have the enthusiasm. So just yes, what do I mean by functional requirements? Just yes, the difference between functional is doing something like what it does, right? Yep. And non-functional is stuff like the back end. What? Let me go through these. I think I might be losing you guys just a little bit.
There's a UCF alert.
Right.
Your phone, UCF says that there's an armed intruder.
So what we're supposed to do is that we're supposed to stay in place. Are you kidding, really? Gonna say where it was, Garage A?
Yeah, Garage A.
Oh, who cares? That's way over there. Demo gods are working against me. I'll give you 2 minutes to talk, and I'll see if I can rewind you, reel you guys back in.
It's a good day to be
Alright, done. Did they catch the first one? Is that on the scale or whatever? Okay, so functional requirements, functionality or system services, user, he said, user requirements, right? This is what the user wants to use, such as I want to create an invoice, I want to blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here are examples, the user shall be able to search either all or, so here's, for your contact manager, what are your user requirements? Log in, register, search contacts, add contacts, delete contacts, and stuff like that, right? So those are your, and notice they've got this thing called order_ID. So that's going to be something that is unique to every record, right? So I never, you can have a database without a primary key, but I never have a database without a primary key, because every time I do it, and I'm like, oh, I won't need a primary key, then 2 months later, I need it. So, that's what they're talking about here, and that could go in the customer's invoice or whatever. So, these are functional requirements. So I've already have this role play. What are your functional requirements? Log in, register, right? Search for users. Excuse me. Add a user, contact, delete a contact, update a contact. Okay, so let's see. Problems when requirements not work. So have you ever? This is not even just non-technical people. This is us. We're sometimes bad at communicating. Okay. You know, I did that free for all, which was great. I didn't have any complaints. But every once in a while, I'll have someone coming in there and like, so what do you need? And like 5 minutes later, I still don't know what they need. They're like, I mean, I just have no clue what they're asking. So a lot of people are really bad communicators, and even those people who are fairly decent communicators can sometimes stumble. I've read a lot of books. I wrote this one, the C++ Bible. It's like 1,200 pages. Do you think in all 1,200 pages there weren't some of those words that probably could have been written better? I didn't have editors come after me, but still, I had to write the words. So we got to be really careful. Like the CV on the screen or on paper, or a lot of people say, hey, I got this. In fact, you guys know that there are 3 major modalities, right? Auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. A lot of people think always in terms of kinesthetic, and they're always saying stuff like, I feel like, you know, or I read that. It's not I read that, or I have this fact. It's I feel like, or whatever. Or like people who are auditory might say, yeah, I heard about that, or whatever. So you got to sort of be sensitive to that. When you guys know what third-person writing is? There's a reason it was invented, because it sort of shortcuts all that stuff. I hate third. So I wrote my dissertation is 175 pages of third-person writing. It was very brain damaging, I think. So anyway, we got to be really careful when we're writing our requirements down, because it's really easy to get something like that to happen. Completeness. So there's a rule. We want it to be complete, and we want it to be consistent. However, you can't do it. There are things like that in computer science and technology that even though this is the goal, it's never going to happen. Okay. So you try to be complete. You try to be consistent, but and if you are, you're going to get a really good job. By the way, you know, I told you about the girls who are senior project managers at Microsoft out of this class. There are just as gifted of people who go to Microsoft and Google and stuff, and they become technical writers, and they're just as gifted. I haven't had any like email me, I'm a senior technical writer, but they still go and do it. And I would say if you have an inclination for writing, I used to write a weekly column for Intel. Weekly, 1,500 words every week. Like, do you know what? And I'm working here. You know what kind of pressure that is to write 1,500 words for Intel? It's like really hard. So I wonder how many of those words were not correct or not perfect or whatever. So all right. So non-functional. We've already talked about functional, right? So these are product requirements, organizational requirements. What kind of organizational requirements can we have? Well, accessibility I'm going to talk about next week. So your organization might specify that by the way, all .gov websites have to be accessible. There used to be, when that law was first passed, there was a business that started. Look at all the .gov websites, and the ones that don't pass the accessibility test, you get a reward for turning them in. I guarantee you right now, you're not going to find them. Or maybe multiple languages. I had someone do a project last year that it was a math thing on an Android phone that went to Africa, and they speak different languages and dialects there. And so they had to have language packs to be able to switch out to the language. External requirements, maybe the server is up at Scottsdale or whatever, or I have to have code security, which this project does not have. Sorry. I know. So I had this security expert take this class about 4 years ago. He said, you know, this application is not secure. I'm like, I know. But now you know what a stack is, right? So this is kind of a boring draft chart or whatever about non-functional requirement types. So we have product requirement, organizational, external, which I just said. And examples of product requirements might be reliability, so it has to be reliable. And that's why next project we do something called create a testing plan. I teach you unit integration testing, and part of next semester is a testing plan. I don't want to go through these ethical requirements. Maybe there's something. I have one senior design team. It's called Tunnel Light. What she's doing is she's putting up kiosks for homeless people, so they can like find services and stuff. So there, in that case, there's a lot of ethical requirements. So there are a lot of considerations for these non-functional requirement types. So examples: ATM should always give responses within 1 second. Good luck with that. Or your application, your web app might have to, log in within 1 second, or tell them when they got it wrong, or whatever. All embedded software produced should be developed in ADA or C. People you laugh at. You don't even know what ADA is, right?
I do.
Good. I had a guy come to me. 2 days ago. He's a CWEP, he's worked for Lockheed Martin. Some of you might be CWEP. He's a CWEP, and Lockheed is going to bring him in as a full-time employee to do ADA development. You know when ADA was really popular? Like 30 years ago, before Lampstacks even. But there's still a lot of old military software that uses it, and so there's big business for people who know it and can do it. Also, same thing for COBOL programming. You guys don't even know what that language is. But if you know COBOL or Fortran, they're still maintaining systems, and you can actually make really good money doing it. To me, it's deadly boring. It's all business-oriented software. So, all right, let's role play again for your content manager. What are the requirements for your product as far as non-functional? Well, you got a budget, right? So that's a requirement, right? What are you guys spending, $6 or $7 a month? What are the software you using? Anybody using Visual Studio? So that's actually really nice. Thank you. That's really good. GitHub. Anybody figure out the GitHub CI/CD yet? Very nice. What is CI/CD? I talked to some people on Tuesday. Basically, the way CI/CD works in GitHub is you push to GitHub and it deploys to the server on your behalf. It's actually pretty cool until someone makes a mistake, right? And then, hey, why doesn't this work anymore? So at least you push to GitHub and you can rewind. What are some organizational requirements for your project, your small project? Well, you got to work in your team, right? You got to have weekly face-to-face meetings and then Discord meetings. What other organizational requirements are there? Be nice to each other? I don't know. How about external requirements? Me, Jacob, the TA is going to check in with you in another week. So what we do is we try to put some clear guardrails to make sure you guys are actually on track. So I find that early on, if you get off early on, it's bad. So what we try to do is early on, we try to make sure everybody's doing their part. So that's our little role-playing exercise for this class. Goals. So non-functional requirements may be very difficult to state. Okay. So I have a horror story that I experienced firsthand. So 3 years ago, I took on this blockchain project with this guy. He goes, yeah, these other guys, they decided not to finish it, so I got their code. Okay? And so I worked for 6 weeks, right? And he was supposed to pay me like X amount of dollars for 6 weeks. And he found everything about it that didn't work, All my code's already in GitHub. Guess what he does after I quit? Hey, this guy decided he couldn't finish it. Be careful. So I actually do a whole lecture. I used to be I did contract programming for 3 year stints. It's actually pretty good. You can charge a lot more money than you get hourly. So anyway, that was kind of rambly, but what I'm trying to tell you is goals can be very fuzzy, and if they're fuzzy, you're kind of painting yourself in a corner, okay? So try to get your goals to be pretty firm. Goals are helpful to developers as they convey the intention. Did you know, tell another story. So 1955 or 53, the Harvard graduating class. Now, Harvard isn't what it used to be, by the way. So the Harvard graduating class, they give a poll. How many of you have written goals? 3% of them have written goals. 20 years later, they surveyed them. Those 3% were worth 97% of everybody else. So because of those written goals, so of course for me, that's a big New Year's Eve thing. When I get together with all my family, oh, there he is again, he's gonna drag out the goals. I had goals from 30 years ago. Okay, so anyway, so just make sure you do that. I would suggest that goals are a driver for where you get to. And I will talk, when we do team dynamics, I'm gonna talk about goals a lot more. But goals are a driver for where you are and where you're going, okay? System goal, should be organized, so minimize errors, obviously. Verifiable, non-functional requirement. So here, was that the shooter out there? Weekend shade. For her. Don't worry, I'm a certified rescue diver. I can do CPR and everything. Okay, so what's the difference between these two goals? The second goal has quantifiable information, right? After 2 hours of training, they can know how to do it, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Shall not exceed 2 per day or whatever. So the second one has this quantifiable specifications, and that's what you need. The more quantifiable it can be, the better your goals are, because then you can go back and check. And this is, I know I did a really bad job, I'm sorry. Anyway, since I did such a terrible job on that. Okay, conflicts between different non-functional requirements are common in context. So, it's also common amongst developers. How many of you have done a project with people, and all of a sudden, like me and you we didn't see eye to eye, and like we had a difference of opinion, right? It happens a lot. Is it good or bad? It's actually, more times than not, it's good, right? You ever hear that saying, iron sharpens iron? So, I'm a total believer in that. And what I'm going to say is, if you guys have differences of opinion, hash it out. You come up with it, try it together, you'll come up with something even better. So, such as what? So conflicts, what would be conflicts in your content writing? Color scheme. By the way, I think in I made the rubric public today. Did you guys look at the rubric? I think there's a requirement for a PAL, right? So you might disagree on the PAL, the color scheme, you might disagree on whether or not to hash the password, you might disagree on how to do the login. So, but just, that's why you have meetings, hopefully your project manager is really good at sort of keeping the peace. Okay. Domain requirements. So I have a friend, he worked for a company for like 7 years in Greensboro, North Carolina. And the whole web app was about realty. How to be a realtor, how to buy and sell and flip houses. It was all this domain information. About real estate legalities. So what's an example? What's one of the most common examples of a website full of domain information? WebMD? What else? What else? Wikipedia for sure. What else? So there are lots. So sometimes you're working these and you don't know the domain information yourself. You're going to have to seek domain experts. And now they're probably not very technical. So this turns out to be a communication problem once again. So understandability, implicitness. So the understandability, if I had to do anything in real estate, I'd be in trouble because I don't really know anything about it. So you end up learning a lot. My buddy who did this for 7 years, he ended up learning a lot. So user requirements, functional and non-functional, understandable by system users without detail, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I'm almost done. And I'm really hot. Are you guys hot? Let's go. You want it?
I don't know if we can leave.
Go!
I really don't think
I was gonna say, yeah, can we?
that was kind of random.
Yeah.